Welcome to the Mentally Stable-ish podcast. My name is Bradley Ball. I'm here with
Daniel Taylor,
Josh Ludeman,
Niraj.
I can't remember what else I was going to say.
Well, good. We got through the hard part.
Exactly. This is who we are. We're the host of the small but growing YouTube channel, Tales from the Field. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope our journey will help you look at how to reflect and how to be a little more vulnerable.
Try to be a little bit more mentally stable-ish.
Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all.
Where's Josh?
Episode 1 is Where's Josh?
Where's Josh?
Where is Josh?
Beam him in.
Niraj, where do you think Josh is? Is Josh kidnapped by aliens?
I think, that might be the true thing. Or he just became mentally established.
I think it's Friday, and who knows where Josh is on Friday.
He's in the pool, just in his pool.
Josh doesn't have a pool. Not anymore. So
Not anymore.
Yeah, he has a pond. With
so he's
alligators.
definitely not in the pool.
With his floating around, dreaming.
By the way, who misses malls? You remember malls?
Oh,
I remember
all too
malls.
well.
You could just go and get dropped off at a mall when you were a kid.
Yep.
What in the hell did parents think we were doing there, right? Like, because I remember it would be like, just drop me off with me and my friends at the mall. I didn't steal anything. I had friends who stole stuff. I was always the kid who would pay for something. Friends would have shoplifted a whole bunch of stuff and they'd be like, let me stick it in your bag. And I'm like, no. I've seen that after the very special episode.
The
Punky
one
Brewster.
time I shoplifted, the one time, 18, I think it was. So I just turned 18. It was with some friends. And I really wanted this cassette. And I got caught. And like the guy chased me out into the parking lot. He's like, show me what you got in your pants. And I was like, whoa, easy now. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. And it's the funniest thing that I was shoplifting. It was a cassette tape of Stryper. And if anybody knows who Stryper is, they are a Christian band. So I was literally stealing a Christian band's tape.
Niraj, have you ever shoplifted anything?
Nah.
I did once, and I credit my mom with making sure I never shoplifted again. So I was a little kid. I don't know how little I was, but I know I was small enough that, like, looking up at the register where the conveyor belt where the groceries were, it looked like at least twice my height to get up there. I couldn't reach. I could, if I got on my tiptoes, maybe I could reach over and touch the conveyor belt. So I had to be like somewhere like 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there, very young. I'm short enough that I'm looking over and I see all the candy on the checkout aisle of the store. And I think, well, they got a ton. I want one of those. I asked my mom for one. She said no. So I just reach over and grab it and pop one in my pocket. And we get out of the store. I reach down in my pocket and I pull out the candy bar because I'm going to open it up and I'm going to eat it. And she goes, what's that? And I go, it's a candy bar. Where'd you get it? I took it off the shelf in the grocery store. She goes, did you pay for it? And I go, no. She goes, well, I didn't pay for it. You're going to walk back in there and you're going to hand it back to them. You're going to apologize. I remember I had to walk in there and I felt like my whole body, like I wanted to explode into a ball of tears. I was just so afraid. I was thinking the whole way in there, are they going to put me in jail? I assume it must have been adorable because it was the looks on the faces of the manager and the cashier were confusing to me at the time. As an adult now, I remember the cashier was probably a young girl, probably in high school, and she was holding back laughter. The man was smiling at me. I couldn't understand why he was smiling at me because
they knew you were
exactly
Josh.
because clearly he wanted. I was in trouble. I held up the candy bar like this. Above my head. I go, I'm so sorry. And the guy grabs it and he goes, okay, so did you learn your lesson for this? I said, yes, stealing is wrong and I'll never do it again. And he goes, okay, go after your mom. And I ran as hard as my little legs would carry me. To Sandy Ball's credit, I was never tempted in my life to steal something ever again.
For me, around late high school, transitioning right after that into the year I did in community college, I was on a tear, rebelling against the world because my grandfather had gotten a terminal cancer diagnosis. I was just going off the rails against the world, screw everything, break all the rules. I was able at 18 to swipe a case of beer, went out in the backyard and out of 24 cans, put away 6 of them, and I was toasted.
Ooh.
throwing up in a bush. And
24 cans. That's a lot.
yeah, I knew it was wrong. That was why I did it, right? At that stage, it was just going against the world. I was angry at everything.
The first subject we're covering really is male vulnerability.
My grandfather that I was speaking of that passed away of cancer, he was one of the least emotionally available people I have ever had in my life. I think we also need to weigh that with the 30 years that that statement has on it. Today, you say that in a room of 7 other people and 10 people gasp. You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing, saying you're not emotionally available. For me, at least then, that was a fact. As a man, there's no emotions. You are the pillar. You hold everything up. You don't go there. In our generation, while we are better than those before us, at least in that category, because it's more accepted.
Male vulnerability. That's a very triggering word. That's a very triggering phrase. There's some people who are gonna hear male vulnerability and they're gonna make some assumptions right away.
Yeah.
When I look at that, what I think of being able to cope and deal with very difficult situations, but not close yourself off in a way that I think, as you said, your grandpa's generation, my grandpa's generation, heck, even in some ways my dad's generation would have thought, Niraj, you just keep messing with the camera, man.
He's being very vulnerable with that camera right now. I'm feeling that camera is like the
I was
most
gonna
vulnerable thing at the
I was going
moment.
to say, a couple of the tips that camera took, I felt like the camera was vulnerable.
Yeah,
As in
speaking of
vulnerable to
vulnerability,
just-
yeah.
We're all throwing around the word, but I do want to
Yeah.
say very openly, when me and you and Gareth started our friendship, we were doing typical platitudes and whatnot and talking about weather, sports, stuff like that. Wasn't very long until we got into the conversation. And I said, look, guys, what are we doing? Because if we don't want to have a deeper friendship, then fine. But guys die from loneliness. I mean, it has literally been, the current Surgeon General has said there's a loneliness epidemic when it comes to men, that there's proof that they've done through studies that men not having friends and being lonely is the equivalent of smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Part of what men were taught was we handle our things and only our things. And we made an agreement that we were going to talk about things because guys don't talk about their emotional states as well as women do. And I give women their due in this. My mom was a wonderful example of vulnerability. My wife is. I've had many people within my life who are very, very good at that. My older sister, I thank her quite often when I think of the path I've taken in life, because of having an older sister and having someone who could help mentor me in the way that she did. But guys don't talk. We don't talk about what goes on with our bodies. Sometimes guys don't seek treatment from doctors because they don't know that we're not the only one going through something. And so when I look at vulnerability, the first thing that I think about in vulnerability is how do I have a healthy life, a long life? But it's not do I suddenly become weaker? Life is still hard. Life is still difficult. I'm dad. I'm a husband. I got to be a rock and get people through things. But there's also times when I could be at a breaking point if I don't stop and ask for help. To me, that vulnerability is a toolbox in accomplishing the things that we want to do in our lives. The goal is that we have a life. The goal is that we get to be there with our family. My favorite podcast in the world is Armchair Expert. The reason I love that podcast so much is because Dax Shepard, the level of vulnerability that he displays, it's helped me to identify things in myself. When chaos happens, I feel calm, but I also feel like I want to go be the sheriff sometimes. Like when things go wrong and somebody's acting the fool, it's my job to step up and put them in their place because nobody else is going to step up and put them in their place. His talking about the way some of the stuff that happened in his early life, I can see some of those same things having, aspects of my young childhood feeling out of control. Or taken from my control. And I would struggle for these same things. But he talked about how being the sheriff, being the person that confront the person who's kind of going crazy. His wife told him, that doesn't make me feel safe. That makes me feel the opposite of that. I'm now scared because you're involved in this and I don't know what that's going to bring into my life. That feedback, he changes that process of the way he does things. And so there's a lot of times I listen to that show, I listen to him be vulnerable and talk about these moments, and I can identify things in myself that I go, hey, I do that. I think like that. It makes me ask that question, why? That better understanding of myself also helps me think about the people around me and go, what makes me a good husband? What makes me a good father? And how do I make myself better? Does that make sense to you guys? Does that resonate at all?
A little bit. I would say it resonates a little bit. I mean, I do the same thing. Times you are in a parking lot and somebody overspeeds you up and goes up there. I get into that I don't know, it's a male ego or whatever, but I get into that part of it where I need to cross that up, and then I forget that I have kids in my car, I have my wife in my car, and then they scream, like they usually scream at me saying, "Why are you going so nasty, or why are you going so crazy? It's a stupid guy who just ran over you." And then one other thing that I personally feel is somehow you just by default you get the responsibility, or you just assume that you have the responsibility. I mean, what I've learned, I mean, one thing in India, I mean, I don't know, I mean, they're all saying, right, men don't feel the pain, right? That's a whole dialogue that keeps on going around in India, but that's not true, right? I mean, you yourself have that pain in there. It's just you don't want to show it up. I mean, I don't know why or what triggers you up not to show that pain. I mean, and it affects your relationship also, right? I mean, sometimes like when I'm upset, I'll go like silent. I would just not speak anything. I'll just stay in my bed, or just go out for a walk, and my kids, wife, everybody, family thinking out like why or something's going on, and he's not speaking up, and it's very hard for me to share. I mean, that's something that I remember during COVID when I lost my dad. I used to go out for long walks. I would just disappear, and then my wife was like, "What's going on? Just speak up to somebody. It's affecting your." I lost weight also. I lost. I mean, I used to lose sleep. I used to lose eating habits. Change things change, and I was like, probably all I had to do is just talk to somebody. I mean, all I had to do is talk to somebody, and I could have just got off that whole thing. And probably it's a male thing. I mean, it's just. I mean, on the difference of my wife and my kids, like I have two daughters, so they are completely different, right? I mean, they would go up to a certain level, like they'll not speak up till a certain level, but when they blast up, they'll say everything up that. I mean, they'll just say and go with it. But for us, somehow between four of us, right? I mean, we talk so much, but do we share anything like, oh, I'm upset or I'm not able to do this? That's the hardest part.
There's this assumption sometimes that I have of, oh, I'm the dad, I'm the husband, I gotta figure this out. And
you don't have to be showing yourself weakness, right? I mean, somehow, I mean, even crying, right? I mean, I was reading some books in there, and they're like, it doesn't make you weak, right? I mean, just crying in public or crying it out does not make you weak. But somehow I cannot cry. I mean, that's maybe I'm brought up that way, or that's how.
Look, I think if more people cried, we wouldn't have these violent outbursts, right? I
True.
think people take too much and they say if we're vulnerable, it's going to show weakness. But I feel completely different. What I tended to do my first years of my life is I would bottle everything up, wouldn't be vulnerable. Then all of a sudden I would just explode and take it out on somebody I love, take it on somebody I didn't love, punch somebody random in the face just walking down the street or at a concert. So I think if more people knew the benefits of crying, it's okay to share with your family or just go into a room and let people know I'm going to go into this room and I need to be alone for a little bit because I'm going to weep, I'm going to cry, and let those emotions out and then talk to somebody about them. Being vulnerable, that was the hardest thing. And it was Missy that helped me break that. And then further, it was having a son. Being vulnerable with a kid is the absolute hardest thing to do, and telling them the truth and going, you know what, that was really hard. You're going to have things in life that are going to make you feel sad or angry even, but don't bottle those things up like I did. I will say that he is a way different person. I'm extremely proud of. He's so vulnerable. He comes up and talks to us. That's what I love. And Brad, some of the things you were saying, it comes back to personality. We all have these different personalities. And I want to tell you, it's okay that you are you. You were being vulnerable. I love the fact that you like to take control of things. I love the fact when we present together that you stand in the front of the room and you're like, I want you to remember me at the end of this day. That's what I love about it. And I think it's okay to be the sheriff in the room sometimes. But also, I don't see you as a person that's not vulnerable. You share a lot. We all explode at one point or another. We've all been friends here. I think I've yelled at you, Brad. I think I've yelled at you, Josh. I haven't yelled at you yet, Niraj, so we got to work on that.
What's coming?
It's coming. It's coming, buddy.
Niraj is like Chuck Norris. Niraj is like Chuck Norris. You don't yell at Niraj because Niraj just has to give you a slightly angry look. And
well, I'm concerned now.
So
Go ahead, Brad. Go ahead.
I am curious about something because Dan, you've got a son.
Yeah.
Niraj, you have two girls.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, you have two girls. I have two girls, two boys. And so I'm curious to hear some of the different experiences because Dan, I'm going to jump on what you said about having a son. When the boys were born, I don't know why I had in my mind, this is what my job is as a father. And 2 years into them being born, me and their mom separated and the boys were with me. I was taking them to daycare, dropping them off in their blankets, tucking them into bed, giving them bath time every single night, when you don't have a female figure there, your dad, but the kids are so little, you are the earth and the sun and the stars. When they fall down and they get hurt, they need you to kiss their boo-boo and they need you to give them a hug and they need you to comfort them. You got to do that. I didn't realize that I had assumptions of what my role as a father would be. That time in my life, it was one of the hardest times I've ever had in my life, but I'm so thankful for it because it shattered these expectations. I knew that I had to be vulnerable with them in a way that I probably wouldn't have been had this not happened. With the girls, I felt it was much easier to be vulnerable. With the boys, I didn't realize that there was part of me that was going to be harder on them. And it shattered that. And it made me look at my relationships with other men, with my brother, with my father, with my friends in a different light as well. Being able to look at men and go, at one point in time, you were this little baby boy and you had all the dreams and expectations in the world and you had nothing pushed on you other than just being, sweet, innocent, devious, whatever it was. You were this tiny little wonderful baby. And that was life-changing.
And it's pretty amazing being friends with the three of you because I get to see this, right? I get to see your vulnerability over the years. Brad, I've seen your vulnerability grow with your children since they were wee. Listening to you all talk about your kids and how you're vulnerable with them when we're together is special. It's dear to my heart when we do that. Josh, I see you with your children when I come over to your house and I feel like, one, I'm part of your family. That's how vulnerable your family is. Like they open up when I come over there.
How we operate in the house too with company, it wasn't like a decision that my wife and I made. We just both agreed. We used to go over the house rule. What is here when you're here is yours as much as it's mine. And once I show it to you, you know where it is. Get it your damn self. Brad, you chuckle a little bit, but we did it with that level of humor. Because if you know someone so, you go over to their house, you're going to ask them for everything. Or you're not going to ask because you don't want to put them out. Do you think?
So I'm going to interrupt you. Just so folks know, Josh is being generous because the last time I was over there, I said, hey, I need a bubbly water. He gave me the stink eye, like, you know where to get it. So he was like, I was like, all right.
See, that's the problem. Yeah. We didn't go over the rule. I just assumed you into it. Like, why are you asking me for a bubble water?
He already told you once. You didn't even. What's an area where you want to find and kind of work on yourself that's very vulnerable? My kids were all sitting around the table. My wife, we're having a good time. And every now and then what we do is we go, do an impression of me. Somebody will do like an impression of one another. And then we all go around the table and do an impression of them. And it's very much, whatever's in vogue at the moment, how their personalities have changed, how they've changed as they age. When they come to do their impression of me, and they were funny. We're all laughing. We're all having a good time. But every kid was yelling at a separate digital assistant. Damn it, Siri. Just fucking do that. Alexa, what? Tesla, stop it. They went around. What I also realized was it was funny to them. What kind of dawned on me was how often I was angry about technology. And so one of the things I did was I looked at myself. I spoke with my therapist about this and I said, I don't like it that when the kids impersonate me, all of what they impersonate are my angry impressions. I'm not mad at anybody. I didn't have a problem with anybody doing this, but I don't want that to be the thing that they think about Dad. And I said, I don't want to be the guy who yells. And I think that's who I am. But she goes, look, this is going to be something you got to work on for years. This is not something that's going to go away overnight. There's a lot of things we were discussing where she was like, here's tools to be able to do this. Here's this. She goes, this is something you're going to have to work at. What's funny is the last time the kids did the impressions around the table, it was fabric, sequel. That's how they were. One of them was like, welcome to Tales from the Field. I was really happy to see those were the impressions. Is there anything that any of you are working on?
Oh, heck yeah. Always growing, right? 54 years in and my temper still gets the best of me. And why does it get the best of me? Is because I don't share things. I don't become vulnerable quick enough. Right before this, our kid loves showering in our shower because he's 6 foot something or whatever. He's tall. I don't know where he got the height. I'm 5'7". So go figure that, y'all. He was in our shower. Our shower is beside the closet. I almost got angry because I couldn't get a shirt that I wanted to wear because it's coming off a couple of days of small things that have frustrated me with him, right? He's 17 years old. I need to remember he's a teenager. He's going to frustrate me. I wasn't vulnerable enough with him up front where all of a sudden I got angry with him today. I want to become better at getting a hold of what my family calls the anger. They also say I have a big head. That's another story, another day.
I don't think you can fix that one through vulnerability, buddy.
No, they refer.
Big head make you vulnerable. to attack?
Sometimes. But
I feel
I feel vulnerable because of my big head. I can't fit through the little cracks in the rocks. That German temper that they so call, I would love to this day, before I pass from this earth, 20, 30 years from now, to get a hold of that where I'm vulnerable enough that I recognize that ahead of time and share that without having to bark at someone. So definitely something I've been working on and continue to work on. How about you, Niraj?
Maybe the topic for one topic, that why do men get triggered for anger, right? I get triggered on small things which really should not matter, right? I mean, as Dan said, right? A shower and you need to just take a thing from the closet. It's nothing. I mean, you can just knock and say, okay, can you do it fast, or can you just let me get my thing? But you get triggered right away. I get the triggered same thing, right? I mean, small things trigger you out right away. And that's something that I also definitely want to work on it. And Brad, I mean, you are completely right. That's what the kids would impersonate you. If you ask, I mean, my kids would say the thing, yeah, he's going to, right, driving. Like I've just started teaching my kid to drive, right? And she's like, hopefully in the car while you're sitting next to me, you're not on the phone. I sometimes on the phone checking messages. I'm taking meetings and all this stuff. Like, hopefully on the next, you're sitting next to me, you should not be doing that thing. You should be concentrating on me and nothing else. But I get triggered right away. Like if somebody would cut her off, like, hey, can you not see there's a big board student driver or something? And she's like, calm down. It's not going to harm me up on, it's just a local road. We are on a 30-mile speed limit, but I get triggered on everything. And that's definitely, I need
Don't let her know, Niraj, but I'm on her side. Put that phone down while you're teaching her to drive.
I got to tell you, I'm happy already. Josh, I'm going to have you go, buddy, but I'm happy already to know I'm not alone in this. I mean, that actually feels better just knowing that.
I'm with you all. Definitely have anger issues I need to work on. I have been working on trying to get more to that Zen, that level of Zen I just don't have yet. The main thing I've been working on is reprioritizing my own health and safety and stuff like that above the girls. I have prioritized it below everything else for so long. Not even above the girls, but at least I've never been up there on my own priority list. I've been making sure you repaint the walls in the living room was still prioritized like 7 things above. I need to make sure I get my annual appointments and all this stuff. That's something I've been working on, is getting reacclimated to a normal person's regiment of healthcare, making space to make sure I'm good. That's really been something for me. I've always deprioritized that.
I think that's important to have that as a priority. Okay. I don't know how we end this thing. How do we end it? I say, I love you like a fat kid loves free cake and cake. I don't know that that's the right way to do this.
Gluten-free cake.
One final thought before you end it.
I was going to say, I could steal this from Buck and be like, I love you best. Don't tell mom.
Yeah. So remember, vulnerability is not a gender specific thing. It's an everyone thing. And I love you all on this channel. And I love all you folks from Tales from the Field. When you're out there, give me a hug. Be vulnerable. Share it with me.
But if you're not a hugger, you don't have to hug, Dan.
No, I don't want to hug.
I don't know about the rest of you, but after this wonderful conversation, I feel much more mentally stable.
Ish.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Established.
All right. I love you all best. Don't tell mom. Bye, everybody.
Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all.